Hello, everyone, and welcome to Once Upon a Time at the Oscars.
The show that takes you through every Best Picture nominee from 1927 to today.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Ryan.
And I thought right now would be a great opportunity. We're kind of at the halfway point of the year.
Yeah,
right?
just about.
It's June. It's the second week of June, I think, when this episode drops.
Sure.
So the Oscars, obviously, super excited in 1934. Oh my God, I just confused myself. The movies that we're talking about this year take place, or were released in 1934.
Right.
This is the first time we're doing like one solid year, January to December.
God, so good.
So excited. Which means in real life, in real time, 2026, like we're halfway to that next year's Oscars.
Yeah.
So I wanted to see if there was anything that you have seen so far in theaters that you're like, yeah, that's probably worth talking about and keeping an eye on.
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, obviously we'll be talking about one of our 1934 films today, but I think to start off, you're right. We're about halfway through the year. Historically, do we see a lot of movies from like before June? And I more so mean like recently, right? Not like in the years or century that we've had this.
Right.
But near century. But recently, do we see movies that come out before June that kind of lend to it? I think that's an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Historically, not so much. Recently, though, a good bit. I mean, Sinners was something that cleaned up extremely well last year, and that came out in April of 2025. So I think similarly, a lot of people, like we all do for the Oscars, and even the Oscars does for themselves, I think we are looking for a placeholder. We're looking for something to take the Sinners spot.
Right.
And I think if you have to point something out that's going to take the Sinners spot, I think right now it's Project Hail Mary.
Yeah.
I think Project Hail Mary is the movie that did really well, was very well executed, and was enough of a crowd pleaser to where everyone's saying, wow, this is going to be present at the Oscars. And whether we're going to see the amount of nominations that we do for Project Hail Mary that we did for Sinners, I doubt that, just because it is a very different movie. There's not as much of a cast that I think can be celebrated like Sinners was. And I don't think that Ryan Gosling, as good as he is in that movie, is doing a Michael B. Jordan level performance for that. No. So I think that's the movie that I would point at being nominated right now for Best Picture. And in terms of performances, I will say, this might be a little controversial, but not really from what I've seen. I think that Indy Navarrete for Obsession is a likely nomination.
Man, I think that that's going to either be like the Amy Madigan hype from last year, or it's going to be the Toni Collette disappointment from years prior.
It's so funny you say Toni Collette, because to me, I think that's there's a scene in Obsession that you can watch the clip online right now of her at dinner. And she's asked a frank question, and her response is just a series of no's over and over and over.
Right.
And it feels very similar to Get That Face Off Your Face, I Am Your Mother scene from Hereditary.
Immediately, it's already a meme at this point.
Exactly.
So.
But Indy Navarrete is just doing such incredible, not even like for horror, but just in general, doing an incredible job of a range of 0 to 100.
Yeah.
And it's also just a breakthrough performance. So I wonder if we'll see this nominated. If it was a supporting actress, I think it's a lock. But with Best Actress, that's tough. So I don't know.
That's true.
But I'm interested because she is, bar none, probably the best acting I've seen this year. Indy Navarrete in that movie.
Absolutely.
Outside of those two, though, I don't think we've seen the things that will be very present. It's interesting that you asked this question. Cannes Film Festival just wrapped up.
Right.
So we usually look for the Palme d'Or winner of those festivals to see what's going to be carrying over. Anatomy of a Fall, Parasite. A number of movies have won the Palme d'Or and then gone on to have very strong presence, if not win, at the Oscars. And it's worth noting that the Renate Reinsve, Sebastian Stan film Fjord just won the Palme d'Or. So there's a very real chance that, and it's done by Neon, which, by the way, fun little fact, Neon has this past 7 Palme d'Or winners on their roster.
That's crazy.
What's going on?
I mean, they're the ones.
I don't mean to be Tucker Carlson, like, what's going on? What's happening? But, like, what is going on with Neon to where they have, like, because it's not like they won and then Neon's like, cool, we'll get it. Like, they're picking it up. So maybe it's just a numbers game. Like, they just pick up enough to where inevitably it's going to win a lot. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, that might be it. I'm with you. I feel like everything coming out of festivals that have not had wide distribution yet, those are the ones that are going to have the Best Picture presence at the Oscars next year. Project Hail Mary is definitely going to be nominated for something, probably visual effects.
I suspect it'll, right now, I mean, with Dune and everything, who's to say? But I suspect right now it's fitting nicely in the Avatar position.
Right, yeah. That's kind of where I see that landing. I'm hoping that Indy Navarrete gets that nomination there. But I personally, I don't think I've seen anything that will have a Best Picture nominee. I'm a little more skeptical on Project Hail Mary for that than I think you are. But yeah, I'm waiting to see. I don't know that we're going to have a Sinners like stand-in this year at the Oscars.
Well, they will try, but I don't think we're going to have anything close to the nominations or the zeitgeist of it.
No. Halloween Horror Nights house with Sinners. Isn't that crazy?
Dude, literally, I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to in the past like 4 days that like you and I are Halloween Horror Nights truthers. Like we've been going for a while, you longer than me. So I feel like we are the beacons of our community of like, well, if we're going to talk about Horror Nights, we got to talk to these guys. And I've told people for so long, you got to go. And they're like, yeah, I'm sure I'd have fun. I'm like, you love horror, you got to go. Sinners being announced as the first IP house, the other one being the Dr. Oddfellow and Lucky house. I'm not sure what it's called, but Curiosity, something like that. Sinners being announced, once that word got on that, I have had no short of 10 people reach out to me and like, am I going to Horror Nights this year?
Yeah.
So I would suggest you get tickets as soon as you can for the date you want to go, because that is going to be an extremely popular, not just night or house, it will be, but year for Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah. You know, I'm really curious too if that is going to be super popular with kind of the, like, not the Horror Nights crowd.
Yes.
And more so the people who are like, oh, I'm going to Horror Nights for the first time because of Sinners.
Yes. I think that's happened before for some people, but this is probably the biggest.
Yeah.
Like you'll see a lot of people who have done research for the Academy going to these houses. Yeah. And they're like, well, I'm not really a big fan of haunted mazes and stuff like that, but I guess I need to go to this.
Right.
And that poses us an interesting question for both of us. Have we seen such a, I mean, well, we haven't seen such a nominated movie, but has there been an Oscar nominated series like this or movie like this that has had representation at Horror Nights? I mean, Exorcist.
The Exorcist.
Right.
That's the one.
That's the only one?
Yeah, because I think the only other major horror movies nominated for Best Picture, Silence of the Lambs, and there's one other, I can't remember. That's like big. Jordan Peele, Get Out.
Get Out.
Yeah.
Sure. Wait, did Get Out, I know Us had a house. Did Get Out have a house?
Get Out did not have a house.
So Jordan Peele in general, but not that movie specifically.
Right, yeah.
Wow.
So and there may be another one from like the 70s.
You know what I'd love to see now is I'd love to see a the House of Jordan Peele house.
Right, yeah.
With a Get Out, Bring Back Us, do some Nope in there.
Yeah, he does doesn't he have like a Twilight Zone thing coming out? Is that him? No, that's Ryan Coogler.
You're conflating two. Jordan Peele did host and produce the Twilight Zone for like 3 seasons on Paramount Plus. But Ryan Coogler is doing the X-Files.
Oh, that's what it is, the X-Files.
Which I cannot wait for.
Yeah, I need to watch the X-Files.
Same.
I've not watched much of it.
Both his and the original.
Yeah.
I need to catch up.
But yeah, I just kind of wanted to touch on that. Again, we're halfway through the year.
Yeah.
Just wanted to know if you saw anything that might be a contender.
And you know what? As is the case every year, hello F1, there's always a little bit of, I'm sure I have seen something that's going to be nominated, and I just was like, oh, that?
Right. More so you than me.
Sure, because I'm going a lot.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the list of things that I've seen to kind of see if there's anything that like really stood out to me. But in terms of what I've loved, I was like, oh, that's going to be up there. Obsession, certainly. I think there's a lot of talk, and I think if there is, my final note on it, I think the past 2 to 3 years have been very promising in terms of what we're willing to give for horror films.
Yes.
Substance being nominated for Best Picture, Demi Moore being nominated for Best Actress, The Ugly Stepsister having its presence when it comes to the makeup design and hair design.
Sure.
Even, I almost called her Aunt Gladys, even Amy Madigan winning Best Supporting Actress for Weapons.
Frankenstein
Being nominated. We are seeing horror more presently... Well, present. We're seeing it more present in the Academy. So the next question would be, I mean, Demi Moore, obviously getting that nomination because A, she deserves it, but also she has a lot of, register and clout within the Academy and the history of films. Indy Navarrete is a breakout performance, so it's a very different thing for them to be nominated for the same award.
Right.
So I don't know, but I will say that I'm interested because she is giving the most incredible performance I've seen this year so far.
Agreed.
So that doesn't always mean, and I've seen incredible performances in horror before that did not get nominated because why would it? And something like Obsession is mean, and the Substance was too. So who knows?
Yeah.
But I'm interested.
Yeah, I'm super hyped. All of that is to say it's been out for a long time now, so if you were going to see it, you probably already did. But if you are hanging on for like the last thing, you're like, yeah, I don't really want to see Obsession, you should probably go see Obsession.
We haven't seen Backrooms yet, but by the time that this episode comes out, Backrooms will just be coming out. So what an incredible double feature that'll be.
Yeah, that's true. True. I think Obsession is just like I think the concept of Backrooms will be good past Kyle.
Yes.
But Obsession is like performance based.
100%.
But yeah, that's that, because we do have to talk about the movie today.
Yeah, and you know what's so funny? I feel like we picked a good time to be talking about where we are now with the Academy and Oscars and what we think is going to be nominated, because the one that we have to talk about today is going to be a strange one to talk about. It's going to be a little difficult, so I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to pad a little bit.
Yeah.
So, of course, we're talking about the House of Rothschild from 1934. This is the George Arliss return for us from Disraeli. We have our opinions on George Arliss. I have a feeling they'll come out on this episode. But let's dive right into it. Very easy job for me today. One nomination. Only one.
Surprisingly, not George Arliss.
This is the thing. I feel like George Arliss is living a Curb Your Enthusiasm moment all the time on this podcast, where every time he's waiting for the opportunity to be celebrated, and no one will give it to him.
Yeah,
except him. He'll give it to him.
He really gets a bad rep from us.
Sure.
And I wonder, maybe he is a stand-up guy, and he's like a nice dude, and he's not very conceited, but in our minds, we're just like, he takes over every set he's on, he demands the fame and recognition, and I don't know if he actually does that, but it feels like he does.
I did some research. We'll come back to it.
Oh, no.
And nothing that's like he was a terrible person, but it leads the witness a little bit.
Okay.
We'll get there. One nomination, and of course that means that then one nomination was for Outstanding Production on behalf of 20th Century. Pretty short list, or not short list, but pretty common theme to be seeing more of recently in the years we're talking about, of one nomination Best Picture.
Well, especially this year. To run down who we're watching today, this was directed by Alfred L. Worker, starring George Arliss as not only Mayor Rothschild, but his son, Nathan Rothschild, which I have problems with, personally. Boris Karloff returns as Count Ladrantz, and Loretta Young as Julie Rothschild. There's a lot of other people in this movie, but it's a George Arliss movie, so no, there's not. Pretty much.
I will say more people on screen with George Arliss at a time than Disraeli.
This is true.
And one reason is that they had obviously this is different than Disraeli, which was 1929, 1930?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. So very different time with microphones. So
Right.
we can have more people present in like one scene.
They had more mics they could go around, really.
Yeah.
they
And George
could
Arliss is
afford-
like, sure, that's why.
Yes, give me 3.
Yeah, so this is based on a play written by George Hembert Wesley. One thing I wanted to point out right off the bat, you said it's directed by Alfred L. Worker, and that is true, but it's interesting that there are 2 names attached to the director position for this. Is Alfred L. Worker and then Sidney Lanfield.
Is that the assistant director?
So, kind of.
Okay.
The thing that's interesting is that Alfred Worker was brief. I'm so sorry to fly off the handle like that. Alfred L. Worker was briefly ill for a time, so Sidney Lanfield took over as director for a few days.
He had his little Disraeli blanket. He may have been super sick. I feel like I'm being very mean towards everyone in this movie.
I have nothing about Alfred L. Well, I have some concerns for Alfred L. Worker, but no, mostly just briefly ill. So clearly, like you're right, the main direction should be.
Did you say briefly L?
L.
Oh,
He's
you were making a
briefly Alfred L.
You're
Worker.
making a middle name joke.
I didn't mean to, but now I do. No, he's briefly L. So he was unable to film for a while. But it's nice to see this isn't a 1 hour with you type situation where there is some infighting on the back end of who got the rights for it.
Sure.
On IMDb, all over, it shows both directors, and I was able to find that information. So, yeah. But, I mean, I think you're right. Primarily, the film was shot and directed by Alfred L. Worker.
Yeah. So I want to preface the movie by saying the intentions behind the creation and production of this movie, I feel, are far more noble than the actual presentation of the movie itself.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
So this is obviously 1930s. This is right around Hitler's rise to power.
Right.
There's talks all over Europe and in Germany especially, of course. So there's a lot of anti-Semitism talk going on. And there's a lot of people in Hollywood who are, they're not keen to that. A lot of Jewish figures, especially in like the studio heads and things. Just a lot of people who are very against.
Men of power, would you say?
Yes. Yeah. Studio heads and other people. But, this is a big deal. People are upset with what's going on in Nazi Germany. Go figure. So, George Arliss suggested this movie, again, based off the play, to the head of 20th Century Fox, Darryl F. Zanuck, and they kind of wanted to use it as an attack on Nazism and anti-Semitism, which is good, right? No arguments there. Like, that's good.
Yeah, it is. I have a little bit more context to that, though.
Give me some of that, please.
So, originally, Arliss was under Universal's contract in 1931, and it was George Arliss who asked that studio, Universal, to buy the play that this film is based on.
Okay.
The one written by George Herbert Wesley. And they did. But they did not make the movie. They sat on it. So, when Arliss left Warner, he left it for 20th Century.
You said Universal at first.
Oh, I'm so sorry. It wasn't Universal, it was Warner.
Okay, thanks.
I take it back.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't Universal, it was Warner Brothers that Arliss asked the Warner to buy the film based on.
Gotcha.
That was based on. So once Warner Brothers bought it, they didn't make the movie. And then Arliss ends up leaving his contract with them. Mm-hmm. And then he goes on to 20th Century. And that is where Darryl F. Zanuck was the head. And he convinced Darryl to buy the script or the rights to the play from Warner Brothers, who he originally had told them to buy. Mm-hmm. So you're right about that. But the only thing that's in addition to it is that George Arliss is kind of like, hey, man, I would be really good for this. And then he leaves and he's like, hey, I'd really be good for this. So you should buy it from the studio that I convinced them to buy it.
Right.
So there's a little bit more of like an Arliss has his hands in this thing than just, oh, you know what? This might be a good idea.
Yeah.
And that kind of leads what we've talked about with Disraeli, where it's like he sees himself as like the hero. And there's a little bit more of this too. With you mentioned he's playing both Mayor and Nathan.
Yeah.
So
it's a very Bradley Cooper move.
Do I want to say that about Bradley Cooper? Hold on, I'm thinking out loud. It's different because to me, with Bradley Cooper, this is one of the benefits / downsides of this podcast, is we have so much media now of interviews and footage of Bradley Cooper where we can paint these pictures a bit more broadly. No, a bit more with details and intention.
Like we have more context.
We have more context, exactly.
Yeah.
And with this, we have to kind of like broadly gesture what we think it is because there isn't that level of information.
Yeah. We'd have to do some like digging. Yeah.
But we'd have to read a book about George Arliss. And here's the main question I have for you, Kyle. Do we want to do that?
Man, I struggle to get through any book. I can't imagine even cracking open the cover.
As I sit next to your 400-page, 80 years of the Oscars.
Yeah. I'm all for that, but man, I don't like George Arliss.
Why do you think that is? Let's break it down.
I really think that he has a very specific acting style that I think is better suited for the stage. And I think that's why the two movies that we've seen with him...
Very play-y.
Yeah, I mean, they're based off of plays, but then they're also shot in those ways. We use Disraeli as like the example of a movie where they just put the camera in the audience and they hit record or, whatever the equivalent is in the 30s.
And I would venture... I'm just going to guess how you feel about this, similarly to me. A similar situation with this movie, not to a point where it's like a flaw of it, but it's just boring.
It is. There's a little bit more camera work in this where really it's, okay, let's go tighter. Now let's go wide again. Now let's go tighter from the left. Like,
some in between like shoulder shots of
Yeah.
like Arliss speaking. Yeah.
there's not a whole lot to look at. The set designs and things, they're kind of basic, and I think even when there are things on screen that are mildly more interesting and engaging, the overall plot is just so dull. But again, speaking directly about Arliss and why I don't like him, it's the way he kind of takes control of the movies that he's in. Performs like he's on stage at a play, which is fine if you're on stage at a play.
Right.
And he just plays the most dull parts for me. And there's a huge part in this movie where I think it showcases kind of how one note he really is able to play. Yeah, let's talk about the plot a little bit and like what our issues are.
Yeah. So I think the main issue, the story is that we're introduced to the Rothschild, mostly through Mayor Rothschild in 1780 in Frankfurt. And this is played by George Arliss. We see him running a business with his very large family. He has five sons. And they are constantly thriving, but also trying to hide that success from the powers that be that could keep them further down.
Right. The tax man and all of that.
The tax man, he's cooking the books, he's hiding the books a bit so they don't treat him any worse than they already do. And they do treat him unfairly.
Right. Specifically because he is Jewish.
Correct. So he has to play it up a little bit, and he finds a way to do this. But on his deathbed, and this is another reason that I find not to love George Arliss.
This is the scene I was talking about.
He is the beacon of knowledge. Everything he does, or everything that is correct in the world, he knows the answer to.
Right. He's not a Rothschild here. He's Nostradamus.
Right.
It's crazy.
Because he's like, here's what's going to happen. We are going to rule the world. And financially, we will be the most powerful family in the world. But in order to do that, all five of my sons need to be living in different countries and run banks in those respective countries.
Yes.
And he designs, this is the thing. It's not even a broad stroke of like, you guys got to go somewhere and you can figure it out, talk with your mom about it. He tells them individually, listen, Nathan, you're going to England. You, my second child, whose name I didn't bother to learn,
because it doesn't matter,
you're going to go to Russia.
Yes.
And you're going to go here and there, France for you. And he's correct. They end up doing this and they get older. We fast forward 32 years, I think, 32. And we see that this has worked. And specifically, we follow Nathan, who is also played by George Arliss, but just 32 years later. And I'm going to guess he's like roughly 40, maybe like late 30s, 40s. And we see him in his reign where he's doing really well, but he is also being held down by the powers that be, specifically Count Ladrance, performed by Boris Karloff, to keep him down because of a technicality, and that technicality happens to be that he's Jewish.
Right.
So we were watching Nathan, George Arliss, navigate his way through this to try and find a way to get out of the oppressive boot of these individuals that are keeping him down, not just for his wealth, but also because of his religion.
Yeah.
So, and heritage. The issue that I have with this movie, and I believe that you have it too, is you're 100% correct. The beginning of the process of making this movie, noble intentions.
Right.
We want to, Hitler is coming into power. Obviously, anti-Semitism is more prevalent than it should ever be. And we want to get ahead of this. And we want to make sure that people know why this shouldn't exist and that we will not bow down to that kind of hate.
Right.
The problem is that in the way of doing that, on the way to make that progress and make a film that stands against it, you lean into some very heavy stereotypes that are not flattering by any means.
Right. And I think the hard thing to do with a story like this is that some of these very negative stereotypes that exist involve Jewish culture and money.
Right.
But you are following a Jewish family who work not only as bankers, but the family that becomes the wealthiest family in history up to this point. So it's kind of one of these things where it's bound to kind of rub against those stereotypes just due to the nature of what the topic is you're talking about. But I do think that this movie leans very heavily into those stereotypes. in what feels like a very negative way. And it's not always coming from like the opposition of the family. That's the big problem with this movie.
Yeah, and if it was one individual, like let's say it was Mayor Rothschild, and it is following him all the way through. In a similar situation, what you see with films in the future, you would then paint, okay, well, this is important to this one individual. But what we've established with this movie and this setup that we told you is that it is an entire family.
Right.
At least 6 individuals, including Mayor Rothschild. And now it is just their entire belief. It is not one person who is like, hey, this is my career, and you're getting in between me and my career, and I don't like that. It comes across as you are coming between me and my money, and my family loves money. So you can't do that to me.
Right.
And it takes any kind of like heroic stature out of the story, and it doesn't feel like, oh yeah, I really want this guy to win. It just feels like, I mean, you're the richest person on the planet right now, man. Like, you don't need this. And it comes across as like there's that level of greed, and that's a really thorny subject with something like this too. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And all around, it is just, even from the first 5 minutes of the movie, you're like, oh no, this is not going to go well for anybody.
It's wild because Count Ladrance, played by Boris Karloff, he is the one that is like the anti-Semitism is overwhelming in him.
It's
like,
him,
yes, that is him.
Yeah.
And everything that he says feels so much more tame than scenes where like George Arliss is in a room by himself or with one other member of his family, just constantly spouting off the word money.
Yeah.
It's like he says it 17 times in every sentence. And I understand, again, like we were following a banker, but there is no character quality to anybody in this family beyond we need more money.
And I have a family.
Yes, but I have this family so that we can make more money.
Well, the only like rough character arc that we see of him, other than just I'm smart with money, is my daughter can't marry a boy who's not Jewish. There's no way.
Which is also problematic.
It is. But by the end, he's like, you know what? Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to be like, hooray, he saw the light.
Even then, like his reason for allowing that to happen is, oh, we got enough money now, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like it's just so, it's too much. It's too much in the wrong direction.
It's too much in the wrong direction, and also it's just not enough for an interesting movie.
Right, because 90% of this movie is kind of him. Again, every time George Arliss is on screen, regardless of what role he's playing, he is like Nostradamus. He's just constantly like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to up our purchase 10%, and then we're going to put $5,000 down here, and blah, blah, blah. And it's just like numbers that you, like I tried to follow along, and you get to a point where like, okay, yeah, he's trying to make more money. Let's see if it works out.
Well, the crux of the movie kind of comes down to there is a big deal happening at the bank to buy something out. And he is confident, not even confident, he knows that he has the highest bid.
Right.
So he's not even concerned. And this is where we meet Count Ladrance for the first time, and we find out, no, there actually is a higher bidder. And let me take that back. There is a bidder who has won. And he technically has bid less money than Rothschild did, but the Rothschild vote has been vetoed on a technicality, and that's where the line comes at the technicalities that he's Jewish.
Right.
And that comes from Count Ladrance. So he has 3/4 of this budget that was won. And the remaining fourth then lines the pockets of the people on the board. And this is where Rothschild just loses his mind. He's like, well, this isn't right, and we need to fix this, so I'm going to make sure that I see this. And there's some kind of like, I couldn't even follow this. Almost like he goes to Wall Street or like the bank and just kind of like holds something up and makes it to where the bank can't earn its money.
Yeah.
So he's technically losing money, but so are they. And it's a standoff of like who's going to bow down first.
Right.
And he knows that he won't. So everything he does is facing adversity, but also he knows how it's going to go, and only him. He's not talking with his wife. He's not talking with his family. He doesn't have some divine inspiration from someone. It is him. So Mayor Rothschild, I don't know why I keep pausing before Rothschild. This movie clearly has Rothschild all over it, and I keep forgetting the name. But Mayor Rothschild clearly has birthed that Nostradamus gene into all 5 of his children, or at least Nathan.
Right. At least the one that looks the most like him.
Yeah, which I kind of, you know what I do want? I take everything that I've said about this movie that is negative, I will take it back if there is a post-credit scene that we missed of Nathan's working at his desk and they're like, hey, your 4 brothers are here to see you. He's like, bring them in. And it's 4 different George Arlisses.
Right.
And there's just 5 George Arlisses in one room at all times spliced together.
Yeah.
I would love that.
And one of them has a son, and it's like a little baby with George Arliss's head.
But see, I love that because I think George Arliss is like, well, which one of them is the most important? It's me, so I'm most important, and just the screen explodes.
Yeah.
Is what I'm expecting to happen.
That's exactly what would happen.
And it's a tough beat for him to overcome for both of us, because clearly the only knowledge that we have of Arliss, at least I'll speak for myself, are these 2 movies, Disraeli and House of Rothschild.
Yeah.
And in both of them, it is a clear, whether it's his decision or not, that he is the movie.
Right.
Right? It's not that he's the star, and it's not that like he is the one who stands out. It's that he is the movie, and the movie is built around him.
Yeah.
And there's not a clear reason of why that is, because his acting isn't like, the best thing that we've seen, even this year, any of the years we've seen him in previously. So it's just an enigma of like, what's going on with this?
Right. And that's the thing. Like, the problematic nature of this movie is one giant issue in itself.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that scene where Mayor Rothschild is on his deathbed. And
Yes.
he like talks to all 5 of his kids. The energy behind his voice and everything is that of a man who is in his prime. He sounds so healthy. You're not getting the vibe that like he's on his deathbed.
You're right.
He woke up on a Sunday. He had his coffee and maybe a bagel or something, and he's having the best day of his life. And he's like, "Hey, come here, kids. Let me tell you something." And
Daddy knows best. Daddy knows what's going on. All 5, you got to go to different countries.
right,
I do love the idea that at least one of his sons is like 5.
yeah,
And he's like, you're going to France. And you're going to be a
Tomorrow.
banker. And he's like, but can I play with my friends tomorrow? Like, is that something I can do, Dad?
Yeah.
But you're right. He's like 100% in bed, just like, all right, kids, listen up.
here's the plan.
Here's the plan. I figured it out. It's done.
And the confidence behind what he's saying is fine, I guess. It does feel just like a script being read at times, because it is like such a Nostradamus like late. It's almost like he's a time traveler who knew exactly what was going on, so he goes back and he leaves out no minor detail of like, you need to meet this person at this time at this date, blah blah blah.
Well, I just realized something about this that makes it even worse for me. In the opening scene where Mayor Rothschild is specifically trying to trick the tax man, it's not just that he's great with money, and it's not just that he's cooking the books. It's that he has developed tricks that he knows that they'll fall for.
Right.
Of like, well, no, go down to the basement. That's fine. But like, you should try some of the wine. And he tries one of the wine. He's like, oh, this is terrible. Well, that's for us. Don't worry. This one's for you.
Right.
And they pour that for him. And they're like, ah, yes, this is great. And actually, I'll leave because this wine was so good. But instead of $20,000, you owe me $5,000. He's like, oh, no. Okay. But when they leave, they're like, ah, yes, that's great. 5,000 isn't amazing, but it's way better than 20. And great job thinking about the wine. We knew he'd fall for that. And there's a almost like a tricky nature to it. That's like, they tricked him, and it's like, that doesn't look good either. So you guys are just geniuses across the board. But it is frustrating to pull this thread, because it's just hurting my head thinking about all the like ways that he knows how this is going to go.
Yeah. Well, after that scene too, he's kind of talking to his wife and then kind of talking to God as well. And he's like, I try to be a very honest man, but I can't because they won't let me, which like I get, but I don't know, because of the way that like events take place in this movie and just the way I shouldn't even say the way that his character is presented to be just so completely motivated by money, it feels like he's doing kind of wicked things.
Yeah.
And it all feels kind of gross.
The movie kind of leans into that a little bit too.
Yeah.
Which really makes the whole, I don't think that we're doing the right thing, or I don't think the right message is coming across from this movie of trying to stand up to anti-Semitism.
Right.
So ultimately, does it do that by like putting Count Ladrance in his place? Sure, it does. But not at the expense of hurting like an entire group of people based on stereotypes that are completely unfair and not helpful for this movie whatsoever. So
yeah, that scene though, again on his deathbed, it highlights his inability to play anything other than just, I am a confident man having a conversation with somebody else who's not as important as me.
Right.
I do want to highlight, too, that when you do that jump into the future after Mayer has passed away, you kind of globetrot a little bit, and you're introduced to each one of the sons briefly. And that's like the last time you see any of them, which is another like, hey, George Arliss is in this movie. Doesn't matter who else is there.
Right.
Because you see each kid talking about what type of money is being requested from them to help the Allies in the war against Napoleon.
Right. Napoleon playing a big part. Well,
yeah.
At least the idea of Napoleon
Behind
taking
the
a big part in
scenes.
this.
Yeah. Which I do want to watch like a documentary about this whole situation here.
I have something I can send you. Once this was over, it immediately started playing for me.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Because it is interesting. It's just not presented in a very interesting way here.
It's not.
But when you're introduced to each one of these now grown children of Mayer Rothschild, you go through each one, one in France, one in Italy or whatever, wherever they are. Doesn't matter. Who cares? This is this is George Arliss's movie. But then you come back to England where Nathan has been sent, and the way they do this reveal is so goofy to me.
Well, it's the Cap catching the hammer in Endgame
Right.
moment
Yeah.
where he's supposed to turn around. Everyone's like,
You come up behind him, like you hear him having a conversation with whoever it is, the banker at the time, and you come up behind him and you see his silhouette basically, and then he dons a hat and turns around, and I guess you're supposed to be like, oh my God, it's George Arliss, who we just saw 3 minutes ago.
he's such a play actor, though, that like
Yeah.
you can tell that that's the moment on stage where when he turns around and has the hat on, everyone's like applauding. And
Man.
that's just not happening in the theater.
But even if I saw this on stage, I think that the fact that he played both father and son in this movie is so distracting and pulls away from the magnitude of Nathan Rothschild showing up on screen. Like, that should have been the moment that George Arliss is first introduced. And I would have been like, okay, there he is. Cool introduction, But like, you just saw him 3 minutes ago. Yeah. How are we supposed to feel? And he behaves the same way his father does. All of his mannerisms, everything are exactly the same. So it's
the same character.
He's a one-trick pony to me.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's what it is. It's also worth noting that in that scene where he's on his deathbed reciting the plan that his family is to execute, you don't see his children's faces. It is just like the heads of the children from behind, and it's all George Arliss in the bed.
Except for Nathan. You do see Nathan, because he's the one that runs
sure.
in, and he's like, Mayer Rothschild is like, I got away with my little scheme, and we only had to pay $3,000. And then Nathan runs in, and he's like, we've been robbed. $13,000 are gone. And he's like, oh my God.
It's just not favorable. A couple things about this. So ultimately, you're right that this just is not what you want to see to stand up to, any kind of hate. But ultimately, it didn't help a ton because you mentioned Hitler coming to power shortly before this film started, which prompted Karloff's Ledrant's character and his like anti-Semitic stance. After this came out, Joseph Goebbels, who was like the minister of like Nazi propaganda, he actually re-edited the film to play up that anti-Jewish viewpoint of Ledrant's. So there is an edit of this that leans in more towards Ledrant's than it is Rothschild. So it features more of the things we don't want to see.
Right.
And that's what they have over there. So that makes a bit of sense. Unfortunately. So you don't love that, but I'm grateful that at least that's not the only edit that exists. Just terrible that even happened in the first place.
Right. It's fascinating, too, because like this movie was brought up to the Hayes administration, and the Hayes administration was like, yeah, this is fine. Go for it. We don't have any problems with this. Like, I believe I even read that Will Hayes was like, you know what? We might even show it over in Germany because I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And Zanuck was like, well, hang on. Like, it almost feels like secretly people watch this movie and were like, okay.
They took the exact wrong message from
Yes.
it. Yeah.
They were like, this is exactly what we want to be showcasing in kind of like this evil secret society kind of way,
Right.
which is, huge conspiracy brain on my part. But it's still just, it's interesting.
Yeah, I would say that it did a little more harm than good for something like this, ultimately.
I think so.
The other thing that I want to mention is that with Boris Karloff, previously I had talked about Arliss talking Universal into buying the script. I was confused. It was Warner Brothers. But the reason I thought it was Universal is that Boris Karloff was having his own little thing with Universal at this time. So he was not very happy with Universal not increasing his contract after the runaway success of something like The Mummy from 1932. So he left to England and just filmed a bit in England. And it was here where he was able to get some non-Universal films under his belt. Like this one, The House of Rothschild, and also The Lost Patrol. So this kind of upped his profile a bit more, which of course raises your contract. So Universal was able to raise his contract, and it came back for him in 1934 with The Black Cat.
Nice.
So kind of interesting how we see people using this movie, both Arliss as like a way to project himself and Karloff using this as like a way to up his profile to get what he thought he deserved. And I'd say he probably did for something like The Mummy and being as much of a horror icon as he is now.
Yeah.
For The Black Cat in 1934.
Wow. How did you feel about Karloff in this movie?
Oh, he's a sore thumb. Like this is,
Yeah.
He does not look like anyone else in this movie.
No,
And I don't just mean height, but like in makeup and in everything and the way he talks, it's just he is the imposing figure.
Yeah, and I think that's good. That's what they're trying to do. He's once again playing like the monster of the movie.
Yeah.
It's a little, like you said, jarring, a little silly, even the way he's made up to literally look kind of monstrous.
Yeah, I mean he's pale. His eyes are really dark.
Yep.
His voice is a little brought down. It's not exactly 5-star final or, his horror icons in his very deep voice, but
yeah,
he doesn't do the good evening or anything.
Right.
But it is, I think there's a line where George Arliss will say, like, to speak frankly, it sounds like you're saying because I'm Jewish, this isn't happening. And Boris Karloff's like, to speak frankly, yes.
Right.
And there's like a little bit of his voice coming out for like those things. Yeah, look, I like Boris Karloff, and I loved him in 5-star final.
Totally.
I shouldn't say loved. I didn't love his character, but I loved his performance. But in this, it just feels like, hello, I'm the monster. And that's kind of it. Like,
yeah.
Even the bankers around him, like, they aren't the best people, but they look...
Human?
I was about to say like people. Like, you're right. Like, they
Yeah.
look human. And then Boris Karloff is like 5 inches taller than all of them, made up differently. And he just looks like I am the villain of this movie.
Right.
So... just the whole thing felt weird.
Yeah, honestly, I wish we got more from Boris Karloff as well, because that's kind of the thing. We want to showcase how his character's perspective and beliefs are the wrong element. Like that's the villain. And we don't get a whole lot of that. Instead, we get a lot of Rothschild, showcasing his own negative stereotypes.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer. Like, I wish we got more from Karloff. So he's really kind of forgettable in this movie.
He is. And that's what sucks, because I would say that as an actor in general, he is very unforgettable.
Right.
Voice, stature, and everything. So when the movie makes him forgettable, that's a feat.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't love it. And it sucks that we didn't care for this as much. I'll go out on a limb to say that it's not an us problem. I think it's the movie problem.
Yeah.
But it sucks that we didn't feel great about this, because it did some interesting things. I mean, the closing scene of the, ceremony, I guess, where he's being knighted, or at least meeting royalty.
Becomes a baron.
Becomes a baron.
Yeah.
Thank you. So when he becomes a baron, which I have some thoughts on, that entire sequence was filmed in 3-strip Technicolor, which it's something that it's the first feature film to do an entire sequence of. So it has history in it, which is interesting.
The version you watched, though, did it have
not.
color?
No,
Yeah,
it
mine
didn't.
didn't either. So I don't know where that exists.
But it's true. That,
Sure.
that does exist.
Yeah.
I hope that's not the re-edited version over in Germany, but
oh boy,
we'll see. But about that scene where he becomes Baron, that to me was just like the little cherry on top of why I didn't care for this, and how much of it was just... I'll give you a perfect example. In that scene, we're introduced to Nathan once again, and he is won, right? He got everything he wanted. He's becoming a Baron. And there's a character who's like, so Nathan, how does it feel being the most rich man and baron in the world? Is it difficult to... I imagine it was difficult to get all that money. And he's like, well, the difficult thing was keeping it.
yeah.
And they all have that little like snooty laugh. And I was like, what are we doing?
It really becomes like everything I talked about in like the Cavalcade episode of like, the wealthy family and those tropes of how that's just not fun to watch. That's what they become.
Yeah.
And it's rough.
And if the camera was like showing it in like a he's become the worst version of himself kind of way, cool. It doesn't. Because
And it's not supposed to.
He gets his Baron status and he comes back and talks to his, I guess wife? It wasn't Julia, his daughter. So I assume it was his wife.
Yeah, who is actually Arliss's real wife, once again. Which is another thing.
I will do a paper about how Disraeli and the House of Rothschild are kind of the same movie, but like import racism into another one.
Yeah.
At least anti-Semitism. But then that scene is where he meets, I guess, his real life wife, or comes back to her, and he's like, I used the wrong knee. Like when he kneeled down. And I guess that's supposed to show some humility and like humanity to him, but it's too late because I already see him as like, the goofy character. And again, if the camera was framing this as like he has become the worst version of himself, fine. It doesn't. It is just more factual. We're putting the camera right here. We'll capture it, and we're not telling you anything. We're just whatever the performances tell you is what is happening.
Yeah, it's just wild. Again, like the reason for this movie's existence, I think, stemmed from something of like a noble cause. But to decide, hey, we're going to make a movie that is used as like a weapon against like the rise of Nazi Germany and anti-Semitism, and then choosing a character who not only like just completely is surrounded by like negative stereotypes of what you're trying to fight against, but also is kind of historically a character that, yes, obviously had huge impact on the world and like the war against Napoleon and all of that, but kind of is a villain by nature in itself, just when you think about, people with that much money and power. I don't know if this was the right story to use as that weapon against anti-Semitism.
I would say it's not.
Yeah, and then on top of that, it's just boring.
Yeah. And it sucks because the last thing you want to do is just kind of label one of these movies as boring, and then everyone's like, well, these 2026 brains couldn't handle a movie from 1934, and it's too boring and too slow. But in this case, it's true. And it's not a lot of interesting things going on. These performances are fine at best.
Yeah.
Right? They're not stand out. And George Arliss somehow continues to do this, where he will be the star of the show. And again, there's so many similarities. You brought up his wife being in this, like so many similarities to Disraeli. Mm-hmm. So it's just, maybe every 5 years we're doomed to repeat this with George Arliss.
Boy, I hope not. I don't know. I haven't looked, so we'll see.
And it's tough. You're right. He's getting a bad rep on this pod, but like we're just going off the movies, right? This is all just what's captured on camera.
For me personally, if his name pops up, like he's a deterrent for me. So I've been watching as many movies as I can from each Academy year, and so I'm sure I'll see him outside of like Best Picture nominees.
Let me know.
Yeah, and just anytime his name will pop up, I'm like, ugh.
Oh no.
I think he's my least favorite actor of the era.
This was your Letterboxd review of this movie, right?
Yeah, I really am coming to terms with that.
And your favorite is Lionel Barrymore or John Barrymore?
Oh, he's my favorite of the Barrymore bunch.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not my favorite actor of the whole thing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Too bad.
Yeah.
I do love him.
But let's get into ratings. Mine was easy. I gave it 1.5.
I think we're matched.
Yeah. What else is there to say? It's just not great. I think this may actually be, for me, what felt like the most problematic movie we've covered. Like, Trader Horn has its issues for sure, of its like behind the scenes, all of that chaos. And then, Cimarron and other movies have obviously stereotypes that are hard to view now.
Yes.
In 2026. But this one itself, I feel like if I sat in the audience in 1934 to watch this, I'd be like, wait a minute, what are we doing? And that's just, it doesn't work for me.
It's a bad beat.
Yeah.
1.5 stars is what I gave it as well. It's just, there's nothing heinous from anyone that isn't Karloff and Arliss. So you almost feel bad. Like some people are catching strays in this, but ultimately it's just Arliss wants to make this his movie. He does. And you got to go off of what he's putting into it. And what he's put into it is just, unfortunately, laying into some really negative stereotypes to try and uplift a community that needed it at the time. And it doesn't seem like it was that successful in history's eyes.
Right.
At the time, we can't say, and hopefully it was. And it was the inspiration they needed, but it's just hard to look back and kind of see that as a bright spot in a time where there's that much hate. That like this is the uprising they needed to celebrate, unfortunately, what are some very negative stereotypes.
Yeah.
So a tough beat, and you even gave me a warning for this pretty early on.
Yeah.
Where I was like, "Hey man, I found where to watch it. That's cool, right?" And you were like, "Have you done it yet?" I was like, "No."
Is it secret?
Well,
Is it safe?
I felt unfortunately like you were like Samara the Ringing me.
Right.
That you were like, you have 7 days once you watch this film.
Now you have to pass it on to someone else.
Yeah.
How's Taylor?
Oh my God. It's been 7 days. She did not even remotely watch this movie. Let's do double features.
Yeah.
So I told you mine off pod. You haven't told me yours.
You did. And I will say, the hard thing about this is when I was watching it, nothing came to mind. I was just like, I never want to watch this again. And I can't think of like what I would even pair this with.
So you paired it with Cannibal Holocaust. Another movie you don't want to watch.
Nailed it. So then, we're sitting here. And a lot of times when we don't have something that immediately comes to mind, we go to Letterboxd and we look for like similar films for inspiration.
Sure.
And we both commented on how wild it is. Letterboxd and its similar films either highlighted movies featuring the Jewish community in the form of Holocaust films, which wasn't great, or it highlighted the theme of greed, either in the shape of like gangsters or whatever. And so it was super difficult. So I kind of strayed a little bit away from that in general, and I follow an individual who started from the bottom and now they're here kind of way. So I went with The Founder, starring Michael Keaton.
Oh, yeah.
And
about McDonald's.
exactly. Yeah. That's really all I have to say.
Mine is not very deep either. Did you want to talk more about The Founder? I feel like you just said the name.
No, like I don't. It's so hard because I want there to be a movie that showcases and kind of uses itself as a weapon against anti-Semitism. That would be great. But I think that there are so many of them that are stories about the Holocaust or like it's so difficult. So I just leaned away from that.
Yeah, I mean, when we were looking on Letterboxd, there's a lot of like Boy in the Striped Pajamas, The Book Thief, like movies that just, it doesn't have to be that.
Right.
And for me, I specifically went with a double feature that was a little less of like, let's talk about the Jewish community and more like, if you're going to make a movie about money, how do you do that by not making it just like around stereotypes, right?
Right.
And I picked Wall Street, 1987, directed by Oliver Stone. And this is solely just for if you're going to watch a movie like The House of Rothschild and you're specifically interested in the idea of how people are depicted about like how they make money and the greed that follows that, it's probably better to follow someone that doesn't have those kind of like stereotypes, but instead is like a character act or character drama. And you see the arc of their character and you understand why they're doing what they're doing. Something I think we're missing in The House of Rothschild. So I picked this one not just for Michael Douglas and his Oscar-winning performance for this, right?
Sure.
As Gordon Gekko?
Yeah, I think so.
He was at least nominated, but
Yeah,
I believe he won. But the film wasn't, which is interesting. And I did do the research, I promise, so this is easier work for you later on. Wall Street, 1987, that's my pick. Nice. Just because if you're going to watch a movie that's depicted about people who are making a lot of money and how they can be good or bad, I think this is much more of a character piece than something like Arliss is trying to achieve with The House of Rothschild.
Nice. Solid double feature. As solid as they can get, I think.
I think we did the best we could.
Yeah.
Because it's a really, not even thorny subject. It just sucks to have to talk about because you really don't want to like give any light to these really stupid stereotypes.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it sucks to talk about when you're like, oh, cool, a movie that, is a fight against this awful thing.
Yes.
But then it showcases it.
It does. See, that's the thing. Looking back now in 2026, it doesn't feel like it really fought it that much. It tried to.
Right.
In the sense of like, yeah, he won and the guy who was anti-Semitic didn't. Yeah. But along the way, we did so much to harm the community ultimately that it just doesn't feel good.
Right. So that's The House of Rothschild. Do with that what you will.
Good luck. Worth mentioning that we were able to find it on YouTube. Couple of ways to see it, but it's not something that you can rent. So we found it on YouTube. Best of luck to find it any other way. To my knowledge, not a physical release that I could find.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I also will admit I didn't look very hard. I'm not trying to buy this movie, but nothing that I found.
Fair play, fair play. So next episode, we will be covering Viva Villa.
Return of Wallace Beery.
Correct. So that should be, at the very least, interesting. We are following another real-life figure, so...
True.
Another example of that.
We'll get there.
But if you have thoughts on the House of Rothschild, shoot us an email at outaopodcast@gmail.com. And then I do want to shout out, we'll have announced this in our previous ceremony episode, but this is the first time things are really lining up. So if you want to sign up for the Patreon, you can check out patreon.com/OUTAOpodcast. We have all kinds of perks there, including where you can vote for what film you think truly deserved Best Picture. You get access to the community Discord, as well as other cool bonuses, including what we are calling Horror of the Overlooked. And that is going to be our bonus podcast that we'll be releasing once a month on the 13th of every month. So the first episode of that is going to drop in just a few days on June 13th, which is Saturday.
Yes. And what is the Horror of the Overlooked, Kyle?
It is going to be a 30-minute show. The idea right now is that we are going to basically hit a timer for 30 minutes, and we're just going to talk about movies that came out during whatever year we're covering of the podcast. So right now, we'll be doing 1934, of course. We're going to talk about as many movies released in 1934 of the horror genre in 30 minutes. And that's going to be a Patreon exclusive. So if you want access to that, check out the Patreon. I'm really looking forward to it because horror is such a big thing that we constantly bring up. We talked about it at the beginning of this episode. Horror is constantly overlooked at the Academy Awards, and we want to have like a little opportunity to shed light on the genre.
Yeah, I mean, we're thrilled, I know, to speak for both of us, over how much we've seen horror more present in the past couple of years with the Academy. That hasn't always been the case,
right?
Even with things like The Exorcist and Silence of the Lambs sweeping the Big Five, one of 3 films to do so as of this point of this recording.
Yeah.
It's very important to look at the films that were missed in between then before we got to this point. So it's very cool to be able to talk about such an overlooked genre, maybe one of maybe 2 or 3, I'd say at least sci-fi, of the overlooked genres when it comes to Academy. So I'm really interested to break this down with you a little further.
It's going to be a blast. And I think this first episode will cover some of the films of 1934, but I think we'll also take a look back maybe at the previous years, just so we can highlight things that Universal was pumping out and all of that.
Totally. I mean, this is the time of like Universal monsters, so it's really going to be lending a lot to the research we do.
Yeah, so 30-minute episodes released every 13th of the month, covering horror movies overlooked by the Academy. That's Horror of the Overlooked. Check it out if you'd like, but that's going to do it for this episode. As always, I'm Kyle.
I'm Ryan.
And we'll see you at the movies.